Tanjiro's father was a sun breather. He would dance in the midst of the snow, and he'd feel the cold, but at the same time he'd feel so warm inside. Tanjiro would watch him as he danced, and so along with his sister. They would watch more and more, and Tanjiro would know how weak his father would be, but how would he dance in the midst of the snow like this? He never understood, but Tanjiro's father would eventually tell him that if you breathe properly, and you focus on your breathing, you focus on your body, eventually your mind will override all of that feeling, and you could live so much longer. That's why he was able to push through this sickness, push through all of the pain that he was in. Not only that, he loved his family so much that he would push through that pain every day, no matter what. But something changed in this continuity. His father knew what Tanjiro would be, or at least there was a chance that he would be. His father knew that there was a chance that Tanjiro could be something known as a sun breather, a demon slayer, the strongest of them all. He knew, for some reason he could feel deep down in his mind that Tanjiro would take up that mantle and dance within the snow, just like he did all those years ago. But his father would die, pass away far, far, far before he could see his young boy do so. But some information would be left there. Some information would be left on the table with Tanjiro's mother. She debated with giving this information away because she didn't know what to do. But with that said, an opportunity would come, an opportunity that really Tanjiro's mother could not pass up. An opportunity that would allow her to actually work and sustain for her family. She wanted to do such a thing for such a long time, but she couldn't take care of all of her kids. That note on the table would be the way she would be able to do that. She would sit down with her two oldest kids, Nezuko and Tanjiro. Both of them would stare at her, waiting for whatever she's talking about. And she explains that they will be living with someone else, that her or their father and her former husband knew of the potential Tanjiro might have, and that they should go live with this man, or at least him and his family. And these are other known as the Rengokus, that they should go live with them, and Tanjiro might find something deep within himself that he never knew he would actually have. Tanjiro is confused, but of course he trusts the instincts of his mother, and Nezuko does as well, deciding that if they send both of them over, her handling two smaller kids or little kids would be a lot easier than having to deal with, 4 kids and also trying to make a living. She says that there will be no reason for them to worry and to not worry about anything outside in terms of their family, and they'll visit them from time to time, and they can feel free to visit them at a new location soon to come as well. Tanjiro is happy to hear this, but at the same time is worried at what's to come. Both Tanjiro and Nezuko would begin their journey, eventually arriving at the house of the Rengokus, and it seems like the oldest, the father of Kyojuro Rengoku, was a former Hashira, or at least a Hashira that was out of his prime, as a matter of fact, and Kyojuro wanted to be just that. His younger brother would want to be a demon slayer as well, but he didn't have the talent that the Rengoku we know, of course, has. Tanjiro and Nezuko would arrive, and the father of the Rengokus would stare at Tanjiro and Nezuko in complete shock, looking and staring daggers into Tanjiro, realizing who this is. Flames begin to basically emerge from his voice. He was so mad to see this boy here, but right before he could say a word, a younger version of Rengoku, being about 15 to 16 years old, would approach both of them, greeting them both, saying that they're both welcome here and welcome to the house of Rengoku. Immediately, his father is going to dispute this, but of course Rengoku keeps a vintage smile on his face and says that if his father doesn't wish to help and take care of them, that he will help alongside anybody else that would like to help. His father obviously shakes his head and in a drunken rage walks off. Rengoku smiles at them once again and tells them that they are welcome in their home. Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. I'm back with a brand new Tanjiro What If. I have a Naofumi What If ready to go. I just need to kind of, record it and stuff. But I decided that I wanted to do this Tanjiro What If first. Is there a reason why? Not really. I just kind of wanted to do it first. But nonetheless, I hope you all enjoy. And if you do, make sure to leave a like, sub, and comment down below. Also, check the links in the description. And I'm not going to waste much more of your time. And let's just get right into the What If. Let's get it. Tanjiro and his sister Nezuko would begin to get settled in the Rengoku household. After some time would pass, Rengoku or Kyojuro will actually start talking to Tanjiro more and more, learning about his backstory, about his own father, and many other things as well. He would speak with Nezuko, but even Kyojuro could tell that Nezuko wasn't a fighter by any means. That's just not who she was in her nature. Tanjiro, on the other hand, was slightly different. He started sparring with Tanjiro a little bit, just with some simple wood swords, and it would become pretty apparent that Tanjiro was a pretty quick learner. And just based on the positive reinforcement Rengoku would give him, it would actually accelerate the process of learning swordsmanship. Rengoku's brother, or his little brother, would kind of feel a little left out in terms of this. Of course, he wants the attention of his older brother, but of course he would get some attention to a certain extent, but Kyojiro's attention would be mostly on Tanjiro. From time to time, Tanjiro and Nezuko would go visit their mom, and obviously the other siblings, but they wouldn't stay very long. Of course, leaving back and forth would be kind of a bit of a trip, and a pretty long one at that. Sometimes they wouldn't even be able to see their mother. They would only see their siblings, and their mother was out working hard as always. Nonetheless, though, the training, quote-unquote, would continue on. Tanjiro would not know about demons, though, at this point, and he would just know that Rengoku was becoming something, or some sort of samurai or something. He wouldn't know much about it, and Rengoku or Kyojiro wouldn't really speak too much about it at the end of the day. But when eventually the day would come that Rengoku or Kyojiro would leave pretty soon, in terms of going off into basically being a Hashira, the reveal of what he is would eventually come about. He would explain that he's a demon slayer that is there to protect the people, just like all of them, against demons. That his father was a Hashira at heart as well, and yes, he might seem to have a hard outer shell, but his father is a good man. He just doesn't want to see his young son get hurt. Rengoku or Kyojiro would always have a smile on his face, telling Tanjiro that maybe one day that he'll be able to become a demon slayer as well. He sees a lot of potential within Tanjiro, and knowing Tanjiro himself, he's a sun breather. He knows this from the scar on his face, but Tanjiro disputes this, saying that the scar on his face was man-made, that he tried to protect one of his siblings and he got burned pretty bad. It happened a couple days before they actually left, but it's not a natural mark. And Rengoku is shocked to hear this, but still tells him that he has potential, that he's seen the fire in the boy's eyes, and it's more than that. It's the fire that burns in the sun. That beautiful flame that stems from the sun is the power that he has, the strength that he could have. Rengoku tells him this and says to protect his sister Nezuko, and one day and very soon they'll meet again. Rengoku would leave, and eventually Rengoku's father, or the oldest of the Rengoku family, would begin to kind of torment Tanjiro and Nezuko, telling them that they will never be like Rengoku, that Rengoku is something different, and even Rengoku himself is a failure to a certain extent. Tanjiro would get mad hearing this, but would keep it to himself to basically relegate the idea that he doesn't want to make any more trouble than there has to be. But trouble would eventually come when Nezuko decides to head off to see her mother and her family on her own. Nezuko would head off, and Tanjiro would be soon behind, but he was busy training with the youngest Rengoku, training to actually maybe become a demon slayer in the near future. But that motivation would spike like crazy when Tanjiro would catch up to Nezuko and catch up eventually to his family the next day. Because when he arrived at his new family home, or at least the home that his mother and his two siblings were at, everyone was dead. He looks around to see the bodies lay sprawl all over everywhere. He sees his youngest brother, his youngest sister, his mother. They're all dead. Tanjiro begins to break down in tears, but he wipes them away almost instantly, seeing that Nezuko herself is somehow still alive. He grabs her, picking her up, jumping off, running as far as possible, gaining a far greater distance than ever really before. He begins to head over to the Rengoku household. He uses what Rengoku has taught him, or Kyujuro has taught him, and that is to breathe. He knows this breathing style of some sorts that Rengoku has taught him. He doesn't know it perfectly, but he knows it to a certain extent. He sprints off as fast as possible. Flames begin to feel as if they were burning off his body, but just as he continues to run, something happens. The unspeakable happens. Nezuko wakes up, immediately waking up and pinning Tanjiro to the ground, trying to strike him on his neck. Nezuko begins to try and maul Tanjiro, but Tanjiro continues to bob and weave, moving out of the way, telling his sister to calm down, flipping her and basically detaining her the best he possibly can. But just as he does this, a sword comes swooping in to slice at Nezuko's neck. He dodges out of the way, luckily saving Nezuko, and he looks up, which he thinks to see Rengoku. The movement, the fighting, the strong, this aura of strength. But the one thing that this person lacked was the signature smile. And obviously that beautiful, beautiful orange and also red hair. That wasn't Rengoku, it was someone different. This man yells at Tanjiro, telling him to get away from the demon, and he disputes, saying that this is his sister. The man by the name of Giyu Tomioka says that this demon is no longer his sister, that he needs to throw that idea away right now. Giyu comes in once again, but is somehow stopped. Tanjiro pulls out a sword that he's gotten before from Rengoku himself, or Kyujuro himself, and he clashes with Giyu. Yes, of course, he's not as strong as Giyu by any means, but the fact that he's able to block a strike from Giyu himself, who is this kid? But just as Giyu is contemplating this, he realizes it. He looks into the kid's eyes, those red eyes, the scar on his face. This is the kid Rengoku was talking about. This is the kid that the Flame Hashira was talking about. This is him. And that his little sister. Giyu realizes the situation. The two people that the Rengoku household adopted, brought in, and was taking care of, well, one of them is now a demon. He doesn't know what to do. He's in complete shock, but he sees the hope in Tanjiro's eyes, the potential that he has. He's not sure what to do, but he stabs his sword into the ground and tells him to calm down. Okay, I'm here to hear you out. I know your sister's a demon, but we need to get her under wraps. So if we can knock her out, that's what matters now. Tanjiro shakes his head and in regret turns and chops her on the neck and basically just hits her in a pressure point that Rengoku has taught him, and she slightly passes out, and he has to do it once again, hoping to not hurt her. In which Giyu reminds him that she is a demon, that she won't be hurt, that she'll be fine, she can regenerate even if he sliced her on the hand or something, that she would be just fine. Tanjiro nods, and Giyu reveals something to him. I have a master nearby. Someone that raised me, trained me, all of that. Just like how Rengoku has been training you. Okay? We can send her to him. He'll know what to do. I promise you that, and he will not kill her. Okay? Tanjiro doesn't know what to say, but Giyu does reassure him that Rengoku is part of their family in his own way as well. He promises that he has no ill intent toward Tanjiro, and he has no reason to kill his sister. Eventually, it's decided that they'll send Nezuko over to Urokodaki, the master of the Water Hashira, or the former Water Hashira at that. Tanjiro is reluctant, but nonetheless, Nezuko would be sent over, and the deep sleep that Nezuko is put under would continue, and also a hypnosis that she needs to go through would continue as well. In terms of Tanjiro, him and Giyu would head back to the Rengoku household. taking what is needed for himself and also the sword that Rengoku has gifted him. Of course, the youngest brother of Rengoku would ask what's going on and why is he leaving, and Tanjiro apologizes and thanks him for being so nice to him, even thanking the father that was so mean, but he tells the younger brother that he will have to go train with one of the Hashira and become a demon slayer. The father cuts in, saying that Tanjiro is too weak, and that it's blatantly obvious the Sun Breather is supposed to be strong, mighty. But obviously Tanjiro is none of that. He's too nice, peaceful. He's nothing like a Sun Breather. Nothing like that mythical fighter that is supposed to be the strongest of the demon slayers. Of course, Tanjiro does not even hear a word that he really says. He just keeps the smile on his face, thinking of Rengoku. How would Rengoku act in a situation where he's being torn down? He'd smile and push on no matter what, and keep to his own code, his own moral code. He looks at the youngest brother of Rengoku and nods his head, telling him that he'll visit from time to time, and he promises to make everyone proud. Immediately leaving with Giyu Tomioka and heading off and dropping off, well, obviously Nezuko to Urokodaki, leaving eventually to the Hashira mansion. When he arrives, he asks where Rengoku currently is, but Rengoku is actually on a mission. He begins to question how long Rengoku will be, and Giyu says that it won't be too long from here on out because he's actually been gone for about a day and a half. Giyu takes Tanjiro to where Rengoku currently lives in the Hashira mansion, and he gives him a small room, saying that Rengoku has been kind of expecting him. This early, probably not, but nonetheless, he's here. Tanjiro looks around to see that there is the room is based on Tanjiro's quote-unquote personality, or just what Rengoku knows of Tanjiro. Anything that could be really thought of. It feels like home. Tanjiro is shocked to see this, and he begins to see the small dummy that he started training on with Rengoku initially, and even picks up the wooden sword, hitting at it over and over again as he just remembers in his mind his family dead. His family just completely gone. He continues to hit it harder and harder and harder, but just as he does, Rengoku walks in, but without a word. He sees Tanjiro wailing on this dummy. As tears begin to fall from Tanjiro's eyes, the pain that he just went through seeps in. The smile fades away, but he tries to force himself to smile like how Rengoku does. How Rengoku is so happy all the time. And just as those tears begin to fall, they evaporate into the air as his wooden sword slashes into the side of the wooden dummy and it lights ablaze. Tanjiro panics and tries to just get it off, tries to help and tries to make it so it doesn't burn down the place. Rengoku dashes in, grabbing the thing and throwing it outside as they just pour water on it. Tanjiro apologizes, but Rengoku just smiles, saying that it's just fine, that it was really impressive. He's not sure how he did it, but Tanjiro is something different. Tanjiro is far past what he would have been in canon. In canon, and in the matter of fact of where he is right now, is night and day. Tanjiro is told by Rengoku that the training will now truly begin, and that he's proud to see him here. He knows all the struggles. He knows what he went through, but nonetheless, he's going to make everyone proud. And his family will be watching, all watching from the skies. Rengoku smiles and tells Tanjiro this, and Tanjiro nods, and he says that he hopes that his sister Nezuko will be okay, and Rengoku has heard of the whole her being a demon. Rengoku says that in all reality, he hopes that as well, but there's a far margin of error for Urokodaki, that if it comes down to it and she tries and starts killing people, he might have to end her life. Tanjiro understands this. He didn't have a clear head at one point when he was thinking about it, but he understands that if it came down to it, it would have to happen. But Rengoku shakes his head and says that to not worry about that Urokodaki is a good man and he was a good Hashira, and hopefully everything turns out just fine. He needs to worry about the final selection that is soon to come. Tanjiro questions how long does he have, and Rengoku says that he has about 1.5 years to 2 years. It might seem like a long time, But when you're training to be a demon slayer and training to be powerful and being basically extremely skilled with a sword, that isn't a lot of time. Rengoku begins to train Tanjiro, but of course with Hashira duties, it's extremely difficult. So Tanjiro will train with various other up-and-coming demon slayers as well. People like Aoi and Kanao will train with him. He quickly is outclassing Aoi, but Kanao is a completely different hurdle. He is trying over and over, but frankly, he can't really keep up with her. But he begins to learn more and more, even from the insect Hashira Shinobu. Of course, she just teaches him things here and there, and even teaches him various ways to use his breathing styles, and he picks up on things relatively quickly. Having that extra jump, being adopted by the Rengoku family, has basically allowed him to accelerate the process. And he's arguably, or maybe a little bit less in terms of the strength of Kanao. He's actually catching up with her at a relatively quick rate. Kanao does have the jump because she's been training and been learning way before Tanjiro has, but Tanjiro does have something that nobody else has currently, and that's sun breathing. And that would be revealed with only months away from basically the final selection. He was training with Rengoku, and eventually other Hashira would begin watching something amazing. Rengoku would fight him, but just as they begin to think that it's just an ordinary sparring session, Tanjiro uses a style that none of them have really seen, and he uses the Himokimi Kagura for the first time ever. He doesn't hurt Rengoku by any means. Luckily, Rengoku is able to get out of the way, but he's in complete shock. Tanjiro was able to use something that they've really haven't seen. Tanjiro was kind of basically using flame breathing as a substitute for his breathing style. Of course, he didn't know water breathing, and he was very basic with a sword. He knew breathing styles, but he didn't really know how to perfect a certain breathing style. Flame breathing was kind of that adopted style he's been using, but once he got a hold of the Himokimi Kagura, now it's time for him to truly adopt sun breathing in its entirety. And Tanjiro would begin adopting sun breathing in its entirety throughout the rest of the time that they begin training. He begins to continue his training with Rengoku, then Shinobu, and then Kanao. He begins to train with all of these people, learning more and more about sun breathing itself, learning more and more about its techniques. Rengoku himself also has some information about the sun breathing techniques that Tanjiro would eventually learn from their old home. But of course, that wouldn't get him that far. At the end of all of this though, with only a couple days left before the final selection, Tanjiro begins to feel the effects of sun breathing, that his body begins to overheat. But with some rest, he's able to get it down to a regular temperature, and he realizes that sun breathing has drawbacks. It may be extremely powerful, and he may be stronger and stronger as they go on, but it's something very, very scary, very, very terrifying. But just like he thought with Rengoku, keep a smile on your face and push through the pain. Keep a smile on your face and everybody else will feel safe. But with that idea, Tanjiro would be outside in the cool air of night. The night before the final selection, he'd be looking at the clouds. The cool breeze cooling his body off, and he'd feel much better, and his body beginning to get sort of used to this heat. But of course, it's going to take a long time for him to get completely used to it. He's staring at the clouds as Shinobu herself arrives. She's smiling just as normal and asks Tanjiro what he's thinking about, and Tanjiro just wonders if he's really okay, if he'll be fine with using this technique, this sun breathing. Yes, of course, they all have really, really high expectations for a sun breather, but is this gonna kill him in the long run? I mean, he admits that he doesn't care for the idea of death as long as his sister Nezuko is safe, but Shinobu gets real with him, that it's a risk. Everything is a risk. But as long as he makes his own choices and his own ideas, and as long as he fulfills everything that he wants to do, everything will be just fine. Everything falls in line for a reason. Shinobu continues smiling, but Tanjiro stares at her and tilts his head and sniffs a couple times, obviously away from her. but realizes something. You smell so angry. Are you mad? Of course, Shinobu's completely shocked. Her eyes grow wide, and her vintage smile would fade away. She would tell him her whole story about her sister, about what's happening, about what happened, about taking on Kanao, and how her sister only wanted to see her smile. Rengoku is very similar in this aspect of smiling all the time, but of course there's a different reason for him. Tanjiro seems to follow suit in this idea as well. Shinobu respects that, and says to never give up his own morals, and always have that peaceful nature around him, because it suits him very well. Shinobu waves him goodbye and says that it's time to get some rest, that he has a big day tomorrow. The final selection. He may be ready, but let's make sure that he can truly be a demon slayer. He heads to bed, and at the crack of dawn, Rengoku wakes him up, and he tells him that it's time to go. He heads off with Kanao, Aoi, and anybody else that is ready for the Slayer exam, and the next step to his journey will begin right now. But that is a wrap for part 1, and that will continue on in part 2. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, a sub, and a comment down below, all that good stuff. If you enjoy Tanjiro What Ifs, let me know. I mean, I kind of really like Tanjiro What Ifs. It's just kind of my thing recently for some reason. I go through these stages of like, I really like these what ifs, I really like these what ifs, I really like these what ifs. So I kind of have been in that Tanjiro like mood. But nonetheless, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I hope all of y'all have an amazing day. Later. I don't wanna waste what's left.